Some battles don't happen on battlefields. They happen in silence, inside the mind. And sometimes, the loudest wars are the ones no one hears. There was once a young man whose greatest enemy wasn't a person nor fate, but his own thoughts. Every morning, he woke up tired, not because of the day ahead, but because of the night before, spent wrestling with voices that told him he wasn't enough. His face smiled, his heart broke quietly. He carried invisible storms. When life failed him, his mind whispered, "You're a failure." When people cared, it said, "They're pretending." When success came close, it murmured, "You don't deserve it." He lived in constant doubt, trapped in a war where his thoughts were the swords, and his soul was the battlefield. One sleepless night, desperate and weary, he wandered through the streets until he found himself before an old stone temple. The air was heavy with the scent of incense, and faint chants drifted like smoke in the night. Inside sat an old monk, calm, silent, radiant. The young man knelt, his voice trembling. "Master," he said, "I am fighting something I cannot see. Every day, I lose to my own mind." The monk opened his eyes slowly, his gaze deep as still water. "You don't lose to thoughts, my son," he said softly. "You lose to the attention you give them." The young man frowned. "But how can I stop my mind from thinking?" The monk smiled. "Have you ever seen a river? You cannot stop its flow, but you can choose whether to jump in or stand beside it. Your thoughts are the river. Learn to stand at the bank and watch them flow instead of drowning in them." He then handed the young man a small clay lamp. "Take this," he said. "Walk into the darkness outside and protect its flame from the wind." The young man obeyed. He walked carefully through the night, shielding the tiny light with his hands. But the wind was restless. Each time he became distracted, the flame flickered, and once it went out completely. Disappointed, he returned to the monk. "What did you learn?" the monk asked. The young man bowed his head. "That darkness always waits for carelessness." The monk nodded. "So does your mind. Every time you forget your light, your awareness, negativity enters." From that night, the young man began his silent training. Every morning before sunrise, he sat in stillness. Thoughts came, memories of pain, fears of failure, shadows of doubt, but he no longer chased them. He simply watched. He began to see that thoughts were like clouds, dark at times, but always moving. Days became weeks. The storms still came, but they no longer owned him. When his mind whispered, "You can't," he smiled and said, "Watch me." When it said, "You're not enough," he replied gently, "Enough for what? To be human? I am." He learned to live not in resistance, but in awareness. He stopped fighting the darkness and began lighting his lamp. Months passed. The monk watched quietly, never interfering, until one day, the young man returned with a stillness in his eyes the monk had seen only in the wise. "Master," he said softly, "I still have thoughts, but they no longer control me." The monk smiled. "Then you have won the greatest war, the war within." He continued, "Remember this, my son, negative thoughts are travelers. They visit, but they only stay when you offer them tea. So, when they come, do 3 things. First, don't feed what hurts you. Starve it with silence. Second, don't argue with darkness. Light a lamp instead. Third, don't run from pain. Walk through it with faith." The young man bowed deeply. "Master, you've given me peace." The monk shook his head. "No, my son. I only reminded you of the peace you already carried." Years passed. The young man grew into a teacher, not of words, but of presence. People came from far and near to seek his wisdom, and he would tell them, "Your thoughts are like wild horses. Ride them gently, or they'll drag you into fear. Hold the reins and guide them home." When night fell, he would sit beneath the stars, the same way he once sat by the temple. He would smile, remembering that old clay lamp. How a small flame taught him the greatest lesson, that the mind is both a weapon and a garden. If you plant fear, it grows thorns. If you plant peace, it blooms light. So if you're listening to this right now, remember, you don't have to silence your thoughts. You only need to stop believing every one of them. You don't have to escape your mind. You only need to guide it back to peace. Don't fight your darkness. Light your lamp. Don't chase your fears. Watch them fade. Because once you master your mind, you master your life. And if this story touched your heart, subscribe, not for me, but for yourself. Each story here is a mirror, teaching you to see yourself in a kinder, deeper, more peaceful way. Learn English through emotion. Heal through wisdom. Grow through story. Stay still, my friend. Stay aware. Because the greatest victory is not in conquering the world, but in conquering the storm within.